Yes, I mean, we've touched on a lot of topics here at this summit, from the capital raising and financing of, the targets that we've been in place, carbon zero by 2050. Hong Kong has adopted that as well within the last year. What has to be the priority for Hong Kong government, and for that matter, the capital markets here, to play an active role?
Right. I think for any local government must look at their own projects and make sure that their development projects are all based on carbon neutral projects. So Hong Kong has quite a number of major projects, the Northern Metropolis and so on. So these have got to be designed from the start with net zero in mind. So that's number one. Number two, of course, is Hong Kong is a financial center, and therefore it is raising capital for mainland China and the Asia-Pacific region. So I think we need to be able to have the people to be able to understand net zero as it goes forward, so that we can help to both package projects as well as have the financial sector be able to raise money for these projects.
How important then would it be for Hong Kong to become kind of a green bond center and get not only the governments issuing these, but corporates as well, to get them on board?
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of the big conglomerates in Asia are dominated by big families. They're kind of more traditional, old style way of doing things. How to get them on board?
Well, I think you are already beginning to see some of the big corporates thinking about green bonds, and a number of them have already raised green bonds. The idea is we also have a number of big property developers here. So again, how they build their buildings, how they retrofit their buildings for the future. This is really important for any city. So I think one of the big opportunity for Hong Kong is to be able to combine property development with technology and innovation, with thinking about well-being, how people are going to live, thinking about food and water and energy efficiency, and really package it into something that is great for Hong Kong people, but also exportable for other parts of the world.
Do you think, and will Hong Kong become the carbon trading hub, not only for China, as they adopt either a cap and trade system or whatever, but for the rest of Asia as well, because we have that infrastructure, that financial infrastructure here?
Well, the potentials are there. But what we need is, of course, to first think about the mainland system, because the mainland system is what is going to drive a regional carbon and also perhaps environmental products markets in the future.
Right.
So how can Hong Kong work with the mainland authorities to be able to work out systems that make sense for China, and then, of course, linking it to other markets?
Do you think there was a springboard from COP26, or do you think that's a failure? Leading up to the 11th hour, it seemed like there was not much movement, but then there was some joint statement from China and the United States. Are you encouraged, or much more needs to be done?
Actually, I've been around the environmental movement for a long time, and actually I was quite encouraged. The first thing was, I think the world, all governments have at least signed on to 1.5 degrees. People are no longer talking about 2 degrees. So 1.5 degrees as the limit essentially means this is the new red line for humanity. And then you need the big emitters. You need China, you need the US, you need EU, you need Russia and India. These are your big 5 regions. You really need them to be willing to power ahead and work with each other.
But are politics going to thwart that?
Well, maybe the question to ask is, how can we not allow politics to actually not help us to deal with the red line for humanity? And I think you have the Chinese climate envoy, Xie Zhenhua, you have John Kerry on the US side. I think these two gentlemen, they deeply understand that, both as government officials, diplomats, and environmentalists. So I think in many ways we're very lucky, because we also have Joe Biden on one side, we have Xi Jinping on the other side, 2 leaders who really also understand and want to make policies in the right direction.
But government can't be relied on to do everything. We need private sector disruptors.
Yes.
I mean, Elon Musk comes to mind, and others. How is Asia going to foster these kind of entrepreneurial spirit and create disruptors that create markets?
I think climate change, environmental policies are driven by policy. government has to step up to say we now have new regulations. And the program today with the stock exchange is about the stock exchange and the Hong Kong regulators coming together to kind of create a new policy-driven environment for corporates. So the corporates that are more innovative, the ones that are earlier to accept this as a way for growth and development for them, will be the ones that are looking for new ideas and new ways to create new business. And then, of course, the financial sector is telling us that there are trillions of dollars, right, looking for green projects. So how to match that properly?
There's also talk about perhaps if you do have a carbon trading system here that it could potentially be opened up to retail investors. This is a retail investor-driven stock market. There's institutional money, obviously, here, but there is a large proportion of individual investors. Is that something that would be intriguing, feasible, or would it just throw too much volatility and too much speculative nature into the carbon trading market?
Intriguing, but maybe later when what I say is the revolution has happened, right? I use the word revolution because the 1.5 degrees is a revolution. 84% of the world today is still driven by fossil fuels. So by 2050, 2060, if we're really going to be carbon neutral as the world, so many things has to happen technologically, managerially, administratively, politically, industrially, right? This is a revolution. And we are going to need the private sector to come up with many ideas. We need government to work with them. So actually what we're seeing is we need government and business and the community to work closer than ever before. And this is where we're going to create actually a different way of looking at things. And if you can then do that and then develop markets where the retail side has a future, that's fine. But we're still at the beginning stage of countries allowing industries to trade with each other to lower emissions. The next thing is perhaps to open that up to a wider region. So China's working on that, so maybe that could be linked up to the EU market as the next stage, rather than think about let's create like a stock market for emissions products.